So I am Rob Sanderson of No. I'm very pleased to say that I'm now Rob Sanderson still, but the Technology Collaboration Facilitator, which is long, descriptive, and probably meaningless, at Stanford University Libraries. So what does Stanford want with a collaboration facilitator? Well, what do we have? So yesterday on Twitter there was a comment about someone winning the prize for the best first image. This is not the winner. This is in fact a really terrible user interface for one of the digital image collections that Stanford has. So, like a good startup, we went around and looked at our competitors and what does everyone else have? So Cornell, Simeon, has some maps and another user interface and another way of interacting with maps. Oxford, the Bodleian Libraries, they also have some maps, they have a whole bunch of other stuff and a different user interface. The Bibliothèque Nationale de France, maps and a different user interface. The British Library, the National Library of Norway, etc., etc., etc. So, welcome to Siloville. We have all of these silos of content of the same stuff that you have to learn different interfaces for, that you can't interact with across platforms and so on. We have this world of duplication where every repository is a silo that doesn't interact with any other repository. Every application that's built on top of those silos is a one-off, and then you have to maintain them, which means that every user is forced to cope with all of these different interfaces, all of these different means and modalities of interaction. So we have no interoperability, massive overheads, much frustration. Wow. Yeah, that's not a great situation to be in. So, not like a good startup, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to go out, reach out to all of those other institutions and try and work together to build some common frameworks, some common interfaces, some common platforms to improve the situation regarding digital images. So the functionality that IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework, provides and envisions is a global framework by which image-based resources from any participating institution can be delivered in a standard way from any compatible server for display, manipulation, and importantly, annotation in any application to any user in any combination. And we've had, over the last couple of years, some pretty remarkable success in the cultural heritage domain particularly. So, for example, we have ArtStore, we have 4 or 5 national libraries including France, Norway, Denmark, Wales, the UK, New Zealand. Hooray, New Zealand. We then have several large institutions in academia such as Cambridge, Cornell, Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, etc., etc., Princeton, Yale, and recently the DPLA, the Digital Public Library of America, and Europeana, so 2 very large aggregators of cultural heritage content have joined IIIF as well. So that all seems good, but what's the use case? Where is this really going to matter? And I'd like to introduce you to 2 fine fellows. One is Otto Egger, from a 20th century biblioclast. Another is Ben Alberton, a colleague at Stanford, who is a manuscript scholar. So, a biblioclast. What is a biblioclast? It sits nicely between biblio, one who reads too much, and bibliodemon, a book fiend. A biblioclast is one who tears pages from or otherwise destroys books. So, boo, hiss. And a particularly nasty situation here is when you destroy medieval manuscripts, and when you destroy them for profit, which is what Otto Egger did. So he had a manuscript, Egger 1, which in 1940 existed in exactly one location in his house in Ohio. He then took this manuscript, split it up, and sold the individual pages to many, many people. So the situation today in 2014 looks like this. We have the pages of that one book distributed over at least 33 different institutions in the United States, in North America, and probably further elsewhere in the world. So imagine, if you will, that all of those pages were digitized at all of those institutions and put up on the web. Wouldn't it be great if you could then virtually reconstruct that manuscript such that you could leaf through it as it was in Ohio in 1940? And we are very pleased to announce that this is now possible, and in fact has been done. If you go to this URL, you can leaf through EGA 1 as it was before it was split up. So this is 33 institutions contributing images in a standard way to reproduce a medieval manuscript that has otherwise been destroyed. How do we do this? This is magic, right? No, it's very easy actually. The one slide. We have a very simple image API, which is just a URL pattern, which allows you to specify the region of interest, the size that you want it displayed at, a rotation, which normally is 0, and a quality and format. We have several servers, some commercial, some open source, that are supporting it, including Loris from Princeton, IAP image server, several smaller Python reference implementations, one by me and one by Simeon, and so forth. We also have a presentation API, formerly known as a metadata API, but that was really confusing because it's not metadata in the bibliographic sense. It's just what you need to know to present these images in a useful way to users. And it's based on open annotation. So when you want to link something to an image, you annotate it. If you want to link text to an image or a comment, you can annotate it. But that means also with open annotation, any resource can be the body or the comment, meaning that we can link not just text transcriptions to the images, but also audio transcriptions, video performances of theatre that's described in the manuscript, etc., etc., an audio performance of the music and so forth. So the annotations then, being the reason that we're here, of course. The idea that we have, and the reality that we have, is the creation, viewing, and management of annotations about these images in different tools, and using open annotation for interoperability, so that when you build an annotation in one tool, you can then display it in another. I want to reinforce the comments of earlier speakers about having different user interfaces for different tasks. Even if it's a single workflow, it's important to have exactly what is required on screen and nothing more. Be as simple as possible, but no simpler. So this allows for the ease of customization of both user interface and user experience for task-specific workflows. So transcribing a medieval calendar is a different task to transcribing a medieval poem. And there can be different interfaces that will promote the sorts of metadata and content that should be created in both of those instances. The interoperability also allows, very importantly, for the federation of content between institutions. As you can imagine, 33 institutions just giving away their images of a manuscript is not particularly attractive, whereas 33 institutions gaining 32 other institutions' content to display along with their bit of content is a much more attractive proposition. I admit I am a demo god atheist, so I'm just going to use screenshots. So here is annotations in one tool that was created during the project called TPen, which is a transcription tool. which we can then pull over into a tool developed at Stanford called Mirador to display in a different environment at a different institution maintained by different people. We can also display the same annotations in yet another tool. This one is implemented by me when I was at Los Alamos and at Shared Canvas, that instead of having your convenient right-hand sidebar for all of your comments overlays the transcription on top of the image. So you can't see both at once, but you can turn them off and on to flick between the two. At Yale, they're doing a lot of image processing and machine learning in order to automatically determine line boundaries, and they're expressing those as annotations, but with no content. So they run their computer vision algorithms, find the lines of text, find the images, find the initials, tag them using annotations, and create the line segments using those annotations, which can then be populated by humans with the transcription. You know, we're not yet good enough at OCR to automatically do that, so we still require the human in the loop to do that. And again, this can be done with different user interfaces, so that same information can then be re-displayed elsewhere. And this happens at both ends. So here is the calendar requirement, where instead of having just a single line of text, it's actually columnar. So you have the saint's day and the day of the month in columns, which in a normal transcription interface you wouldn't. You'd just simply have those lines. So to go back to my title, Technology Collaboration Facilitator, please collaborate. We would love to have you as part of the AAAF if you have any interest in the interoperability and annotatability of images of any sort. I've used medieval manuscripts here because they're pretty to look at, but we're also very interested in maps and newspapers, anything, any born digital or digitized content, particularly in cultural heritage, but not necessarily. The URI is easy, AAAF.io. We have a Google group and my details there. So, thank you very much.
So we have time for a question.
So notably absent from the list of people with which you've partnered were larger, albeit private, but we often think of them as public institutions, museums. I know Yale, the Bodleian, there are a list of universities that have very, very powerful collections of visual works, but not any public, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so yes, and at the moment we are trying to reach out into the museum sector. The intent is that later this year there will be an event in London co-hosted by the British Library and the British Museum. So we have good context there to try and reach out to that space to deal less with books and more with objects. The Yale Centre for British Art is also another collaborator that didn't make it onto the list, admittedly. So yeah, there are some non-library, non-university institutions that we are working with, but definitely we would love to work with more, such as the Museum of Modern Art, and so forth. So yes, please, galleries and museums, archives, be absolutely fantastic.
Great. Thank you. We'll get in touch.
Great. Thank you.